I personally would like to say thanks because last month we got to do an awesome conference with our youth group called Christ and Youth Move, or CIY Move. And the reason that these students got to go is because we did fundraisers, and you guys donated so much money that we made the cost an absolute minimum for these kids to go, which is an awesome thing because these trips add up real quickly, not only for us as a church, but they add up for the parents because Sammy wants to go to camp, this person wants to go here, that person wants to go there, and we got a vacation, and then Timmy now needs braces, whatever. And by you chipping in and helping give money to help go towards funding these kids helps these parents a ton because this is an awesome week to go to. What CIY has changed, and I wish they did this when I was in high school because it's awesome. I'm honestly jealous of our high school students getting to go this week because I have to be the adult and be the leader and be like, all right, guys, what does this mean? Go, I should have heard this as a kid. They started doing this thing where at the end of the week, they would give these kids what's called a Kingdom Worker card. Now, all week, they show videos to these students of other students all around the country who have gotten Kingdom Worker cards, and inside it is a little card that's a challenge. And the challenges vary a ton. It could be anywhere from raising money for a well in a third world country, or it can be raising money for a homeless shelter, feeding, or it can be something as simple as you only drink water for a year as a reminder for you to pray for this country or for that thing, or donate all your clothes, or give up your birthday presents and instead use that money for that. That's the kind of things they have in these cards. And that is an absolute wonderful thing because it's telling the students, like, there's ways you can serve other than becoming a minister or a missionary or a Sunday school teacher. And and there's definitely adults in here who need to hear that you don't have to become a minister to serve God. And to prove this even more, they showed videos of all these awesome kids and the stuff that they did. And it all starts with opening this little card. Like, it's completely sealed. And the goal, and when they get this card, they have to make sort of like a deal, okay? Like, all right, if you open this card, by opening the card, you are saying, I will do what it says. And like I said before, I have no clue what all the cards are. They vary a ton. And these kids just spent all week watching these awesome videos about the awesome things high school students just like them did. And now they're super nervous because they're like, oh, no. Because some of those kids did go to other countries, third world countries, and do amazing things. So they're sitting there thinking to themselves like, oh, no. I don't want to open my card. And it says, all right, you need to go to Africa tomorrow. And they're just nervous because they're like, all right, guys, remember, if you open the card, you commit. And I'm like, are you going to open? And I have to open my card because I can't be like, no, you open your card. I ain't going to open my card. And so I have to open my card. And I'm not going to tell you what ours were because that's accountability for each other. And also mine was develop a secret handshake with young kids from your church. So that's really hard. But anyways, they got tons of other stuff. But you can see as they're sitting there, like, all right, guys, does anybody want to open their card? And we're here to support you. And they're just like, I don't know. I really don't feel like if it says you must go to Africa tomorrow, I don't know if I can do that. That's what they're really afraid of getting. It's like, or you must give up everything but water. Like, I like coffee. And it's nervous because there are a couple things they are super nervous about getting because they're like, I don't want to open that card and find out that it's something like go into ministry or whatever. They're really nervous because they think in their mind, okay, the only way for me to serve is by becoming one of three things, a missionary, a minister, or whatever. And they're nervous, understandably. And I would like to just jump into our main passage today. And Kevin's been having you guys stand up for the reading of this passage. I would like if you could just do that again today, keep it going. This is a semi-long passage, but I promise you've heard it before. I believe I've used it before, and we'll go through it relatively quickly. So I'll just go ahead and read. It comes from Matthew 9:25, verses 31 through 46, if you're writing this down. When the Son of Man comes in his glory, and all the angels with him, then he will sit on his glorious throne. Before him he will have gathered the nations, and all will be separate people from one another, as a shepherd separates his sheep from the goats. And he will place the sheep on his right and the goats on his left. And the king will say to those on his right, 'Come, you who are blessed by my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me drink. I was a stranger, and you welcomed me in. I was naked, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you visited me. I was in prison, and you came to me.' Then the righteous will answer him, saying, 'Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you drink? When did we see you a stranger and welcome you, or naked or clothe you? And when did we see you sick or in prison visit you?' And the king will answer them, 'Truly I say to you, as you did to one of the least of these, my brothers, you did it to me.' And then he'll say to those on his left, 'Depart from me, you're cursed, into eternal fire prepared for the devil and his angels. For I was hungry, and you gave me no food. I was thirsty, and you gave me no drink. I was a stranger, and you did not welcome me. Naked, and you did not clothe me. Sick and in prison, and you did not visit me.' Then they will also answer, 'Lord, when did we see you hungry or thirsty or a stranger or naked or sick in prison, and did not minister to you?' And then he'll say, 'Truly I say to you, as you did not for one of the least of these, you did not do for me.'" You may sit. So, I would like to quickly point out in this passage that the righteous ones had no clue that what they were doing was for God. They just did it. And by the way, I would also like to point out, there's no fast pass for ministers, missionaries, Sunday school teachers, okay? I'm not happy about, there's no fast pass. Like, all right, ministers, all right, you're automatically in. Anybody else who served the poor, you're automatically in. There is no fast pass for us. It's for those who serve. And that is incredibly important because that is why we are doing this, is to serve. And if we have an inaccurate idea of what it means to serve God, because we automatically do go to minister. I don't know what maybe automatically you go to, but for me, and for me as a student, it was like if those who are ministers, those who are missionaries, they're serving God undoubtedly. So if I want to serve God, that's the obvious one I go to. But I'd like to point out, these people had no clue what they were doing was actually serving God. And so we can't look to ministers and missionaries alone for how and what it means to serve God. And I would like to put like 4 ideas in your head today for you to think about, because the whole goal of this is we are all meant to be servants. A servant's heart isn't a gift. It is a requirement to be in communion with Jesus and to be part of his people. And the first is, you serve for God by serving with God. One of the speakers we had at CIY, CIY has multiple different kinds of weeks. One of them is called CIY Engage. And Engage is, it's another awesome week for junior high and senior high, where they do domestic and international mission trips. And basically they go a whole work and they have a project that they have to do. And they do worship and stuff also. But they have a project they have to do. And who knows what the project will be. But basically they're going to be sweating. They're going to be working hard. And some of them in other countries. And the speaker who came up said something that caught me off guard, as well as our students, because they don't expect that. Because most of the time, when you hear from somebody who leads missions, they say, come to Haiti, come to the third world countries in Africa, come to Northern Ireland, come to Jamaica, or whatever. But what she said, you know what? I want to just say a couple things. And the first thing she said that kind of like hit everybody in the face, she said, look, if you want to do missions, that's great. But if your church has a mission, do that first. Before you go hopping on to another, and by the way, these missions are expensive. He said, before you start creating another expense for your church to support you, because your church wants to support you, do the mission in your church first, because help your church, serve your church that way. And by the way, we do missions, and they go to Haiti, and they go to several other countries as well that need help, and they could always use more volunteers. And I want to encourage you for just a moment, slight advertisement, that if you feel a tug to go do that, we have people right over here that you can talk to. about going to a third world country, because that is certainly something that is awesome to do, and we will support you and we'll do everything we can, and also you will be with people we know. The second thing that she said that kind of hit all the students in the face, because you're like, oh, it made them realize how selfish we all were. And she said, you need to understand that when you go on these missions, you're not bringing Jesus. Jesus is already there. He's already at work. He's just inviting you along. And that smacked some of these kids in the face, because there's several people who have gone on missions, and I'm not pointing names. I'm not saying if you've gone on a mission, this is how you felt. That's besides the point. But there's people who feel like, I'm going to this country and I get to bring Jesus with me. No, Jesus is already there. He's just inviting you to come and help. You're not bringing Jesus, and you're certainly definitely not Jesus as you go there to do these wonderful things and make these kids smile and parents smile and help them. Jesus is at work, and you're just participating. And it smacked the kids in the face, and that makes such a difference when it comes to serving, because whenever we think about serving, or at least when we used to think about serving, we think, this is something I'm doing for God, so I got to try and please God with what I'm serving. And that's something Jesus flipped on the disciples. Like, look, they're looking for places where they can say, all right, here, God is coming, we're his right-hand men. All right, you better do what Jesus says, because he's going to be the king, and we're his right-hand men. And Jesus says, no. Those people need food. Let's give them food. Those people need healing. Let's give them healing. And kind of like, what? What are you talking about? That's not what we're here for. This is how we serve God, is by making way for him. You serve for God by serving with God. And by the way, that idea that Jesus put forward is nothing new. In Micah 6, verses 6 through 8, the prophet says, he's like, what with will I come to God? Will I come with 10,000 rams, 10,000 rivers of oils? Basically, all these things. And it's normal back then for them to think, okay, if I'm going to do something for God, all right, I'm going to go sacrifice something. But no, it says, he has told you what he requires of you: to walk humbly with your God, to love kindness, and to serve and to love justice. All things we do for other people. That's how you do it for God, is by doing those things. The second idea I want to put in your head, I want you to think about, is God has a specific calling to serve for you. This calling is specific for you. And that's why I love these Kingdom Worker cards, is they're completely random and we don't know where we're going to get. And God's saying, all right, this is going to be specifically for you. And they vary so much. And unfortunately, when we think serving God, we kind of get locked into three channels. And certainly when I was in high school, the three channels was missionary or minister. But those aren't the specific things God's talking about. He says, look, I have a specific thing for you to do that he made. And the third idea I want to put in your head, and this is incredibly important, is not all ways to serve are upfront and obvious. They're not. Just like the first passage we read, they had no clue that by giving clothes to those who were naked, by feeding those who were hungry, by visiting certain people in jail, they had no clue that what they were doing was for God and with God. It wasn't obvious. And even certainly the disciples, it wasn't obvious to them that by going around and telling people about Jesus and telling them that how he loves them and he's going to restore them back to God, it wasn't obvious to them, because what the obvious thing to them is obviously kick out all the heathens. And it's not obvious. And what's funny to watch some of these Kingdom Worker videos and see why they collect videos of different churches, that kids that do awesome things. Some of these awesome, I wish I could tell you about some of these videos, but we don't have the time. Some of these videos are just amazing because it starts with something simple. But we don't think, we try to think like nothing's going to come of that. And I'm sure with that student, like, okay, I pray for them, probably nothing's going to happen. And probably with these people that Jesus talks about, it says the righteous ones, they weren't thinking, all right, I'm going to give them clothes and this amazing thing is going to happen for God. They didn't think about it that way. And the disciples certainly didn't think about it when they were going along and children coming to Jesus. They're like, no. He's got more important, godly, kingdom stuff to do. Get those children away from him. And Jesus says, no. And one of the ways that you can start becoming a better servant or better at identifying these ways of serving, one of the ways you can do that is by asking this question. And this is the last idea I want to give you, is start asking what needs to be done rather than what can I do. What needs to be done, not what can I do. And there's a difference. Because if you say, what can I do? You're focused on your abilities and the things that you think would work, and you're like, okay, well, I can't do that, so I guess I can't. I can't tell you how many students are like, hey, you can serve God. And they're like, I don't know if I want to do that. I finished preaching once, before I came here, I finished preaching to a youth group, and I talked about serving. And a student came up to me afterwards, and they were super excited, which I'm getting excited about. I'm like, yeah, I said something good. And the student comes up to me, and they're super excited. They say, I want to serve God. What can I do? What can I do? What can I do? What can I do? And without thinking, I said, well, there's tons of stuff to do that's right in front of you. Like, how about picking Bibles up after our service? Because they're scattered everywhere, because teens leave stuff anywhere. I didn't know if adults knew that. But they leave stuff everywhere. I said, you can help pick up Bibles because, and I was an intern at the time, and I didn't say this, but because I had to pick them up. So if you could, please pick them up. I'm like, and there's trash everywhere. You can help pick up trash. That sounds stupid, but that would be helping a ton. Or you can help clean up this room. And by the way, there's tons of stuff to do in the church. And by the way, and to make things more interesting, and this is the part where she just went from to, was I said, what can you do at home? How can you help your parents at home? How can you help your brother or sister or whoever? And immediately this student went from happy and excited to disappointment because that was not serving to her. Because she was thinking, okay, the obvious things are preaching, singing in the worship band, and becoming a missionary. Okay, Joe, which three am I going to become? And I threw a curveball, and she's like, wait, hang on a sec. That's not serving. And I would, to encourage you, there are tons of ways you can serve in this church, and they are not obvious. And you certainly have done, especially with the fireworks, tons of people, like when we encourage you to serve, please don't think of specific things. Think of what God has specifically prepared for you to serve, because all the people that help with the fireworks, those were things God prepared for them, and they're not upfront and obvious. Some of you guys, by donating, whenever we have a fundraiser, when you donate, you're serving. And by praying for us, whether I know it or not, you're serving. When you come up and ask how I'm doing or how anybody else is doing, you're serving. When you come in and you help clean, you're serving. And there's tons of people in the Bible that are not mentioned who are great servants, but we don't think about them because they're not upfront, obvious roles. Like, for example, you know the Apostle Paul, the guy who wrote most of the New Testament. All the books we read that are super complicated and wordy and make your brain hurt. They were written for Paul. Paul spoke it and another man wrote it. Because not everybody knew how to write back then. And so the gentleman was called Tertius. I believe it's at the end of Romans where he says, this was written by I, Tertius. And we don't think about the writer. We just think about the man who said the words. But without that writer, we won't have what we have called the Bible. Luke, the author of the Gospel and the book of Acts, he wasn't writing, he says, all right, this is going to become a gospel one day and go into this thing called the Bible. He wasn't thinking about that at all. In fact, at the beginning of the book of Luke and the beginning of the book of Acts, he's writing a note to someone just saying, hey, here's awesome things that are happening in the church. He was just writing a letter. he wasn't thinking about how this serves the church and God's purpose as a whole. And if you keep reading through the gospel, you'll hear about tons of people where Paul will actually, there's several parts where Paul takes a moment to thank specific people because he's writing to a church and and the letter's spoken out loud to the crowd, and he writes in specific people to thank. And those are all people who supported him, who gave him clothes, who helped him while he was in jail. And we don't think about those people as servants. We think of Paul the servant, and I must become more like Paul. No, you have to think about the people in the background too. And by coming here on Sundays and asking what I can do or helping in this way or that way, you are being servants. But the question you have to ask is, what needs to be done? Not what can I do? And focus on yourself. Ask what needs to be done. And I have a personal passage that has been drilled into my head all throughout college because the entire time I felt called into ministry. I'm like, and when I got called into ministry, I'm like, this doesn't feel right. This doesn't make sense. I'm not the kind of person that should become a pastor. And the passage I had drilled into my head, by the way, also from my favorite movie, Prince of Egypt, is a passage from Exodus 4:11, verses 11 and 12, where God says, and it's a rhetorical question, and Moses is saying over and over again, like, hey, you're asking the wrong person to go talk to the Pharaoh. You're asking the wrong person. I can't speak well. And God said, who made man's mouth? Who made him deaf, mute, seeing, or blind? Was it not I? Now go, and I will teach you what to say. When you ask what needs to be done, that means you understand that it doesn't matter what I can or can't do because the person asking me to do it knows what I can or can't do. And he has a specific way for me to serve, not these other ways. Maybe it is those ways, but he's not asking me to go to another country. He might just be asking me to give support here. And I might not understand what the bigger plan is, but when I realize, like when I start focusing on what the needs are and what needs to be done, all the people that Jesus talks about who take a moment to clothe the naked, to feed the hungry, to give drink to the thirsty, they're just seeing a need. They're saying, okay, here's somebody who needs this, and they do it. Not, what can I do? I can give people drinks. I can give people clothes. I can do that. No, they're thinking, that's a need. All right, let's go get it. If you can focus on asking that question, you might not realize it because honestly, it might not seem like a huge task at first. It might not seem like all that important, but he knows how important it is. And I wish I can give you all these cards, but I don't. God is asking you specifically. And he might be, and by the way, these calling might sound like just a constant tapping in the shoulder or a constant recognition like in your peripheral, like, hey, there's that need over there. That's that need. Like, that's God bugging you, saying, hey, pay attention. Like, hey, help that person. Help that. You see that need? Now go do something about it. And this isn't just for the best Christians in the world. This is for every Christian. And when you get baptized in Jesus, this is what you are committing to do also, not to just be saved, but also to serve. And you might be standing on the edge of the line, like, I don't know if I want to commit to this thing because it's a little weird, or I'm not sure what all it will entail. I'm sure it means I'm going to have to become a nun. You won't. But understand that when God is calling you, he has a wonderful plan for you that you might not expect. And at first it seems like nothing. It seems like not a big deal. Like, oh, give people some clothes? Okay. But that is God calling you to say, come over here and do this with me. I want to serve with you. I don't want to just be over here telling you what to do. I want to get in this with you. And if you are not baptized, understand that Jesus isn't saying, submit to me. He says, submit with me. Because he died on the cross for you, and he will be there for you always. He is submitting with you. He's not leaving you hanging. He is there with you all the way.